It started with a howl, long, eerie and sorrowful, echoing across the quiet countryside of New Haven, Vermont, at exactly midnight, every night, for 6 nights straight. The mournful cry rose from the old cemetery behind the church on Maple Lane. At first, people thought it was just a stray dog. But then, someone finally saw him, a large, older German shepherd, sitting motionless beside an unmarked grave, his head tilted to the sky, his voice slicing through the stillness, like grief-made sound, the townsfolk whispered. Some thought the grave belonged to a soldier. Others believed it was the site of some old crime. But what struck everyone most was this. There was no gravestone, no marker, just a patch of disturbed earth. And yet, the dog howled as though he were mourning a lost soul. On the 7th night, retired postmaster Harold Benson couldn't sleep. His late wife used to say, dogs could sense spirits, driven by curiosity and maybe a bit of guilt. Harold grabbed his flashlight and coat, then made his way to the cemetery. What he saw chilled him. The dog was there again, pawing softly at the dirt. Whining now, not howling, like he was begging someone to come back. Harold approached slowly, whispering, "Hey there, boy, who are you crying for?" But the dog didn't move. He stared at the earth like it held his heart. The next morning, Harold told everyone at Mildred's diner. Folks shook their heads, murmured prayers, and by that night, half a dozen others went to see for themselves. The dog was there again and again, always at midnight, always at the same spot. But on the 10th night, something changed. Deputy Clara James was the first to notice it. On the 10th night, when the crowd grew to nearly 24 townspeople, the dog, now affectionately nicknamed Shadow, began to dig. Not furiously, but carefully, like he was trying to unearth something fragile. People gasped when his paws scraped away a thin layer of mossy soil. To reveal something, Mose, a piece of rotting wood, stained and worn, and on it, barely visible under the dirt, a name was etched, Eliza. The dog whined louder, pawing at the wood, then lay down beside it, as if protecting it. Clara knelt down with a flashlight, brushed more of the dirt away. There was more writing, but it was faded, nearly illegible. One thing was clear, though. This grave wasn't recent. The coffin, if it even was one, looked decades old. "How does a dog know to come here?" one man whispered. "I don't think he just knows," Clara said, her voice trembling. "I think he remembers." The next day, Clara and Harold visited the town records office. They combed through burial permits, graveyard logs, even handwritten notes from the 1950s. And there, in an old leather-bound ledger, they found it. Eliza May Granger, age 9, presumed drowned, body lost, memorial burial, 1963. Eliza. A girl no one alive really remembered, except maybe Shadow. But that raised a new question. How did a dog know her name? And why had he come here now, 60 years later? Curiosity turned into obsession. Town historian Martha Winslow, who hadn't been outside her house in nearly 5 years, joined the investigation after seeing the dog on the news. The story had already reached the local paper, and reporters were calling it the Midnight Mourner. That same week, Martha found something tucked away in the town library archives, an old school diary labeled EMG. The final entry was dated June 12, 1963, the same day Eliza was presumed drowned. The pages were yellowed, but one line stood out. "Papa said I could finally have a puppy. His name is Lucky. I hope we grow old together." Lucky? Could Shadow be? "No," Martha said out loud. "No dog lives that long." But when Clara showed a picture of Shadow to a veterinarian, he guessed the dog's age to be about 14 or 15, not nearly old enough to have been Eliza's puppy. So that left one impossible possibility. Could Shadow be Lucky's descendant? Clara ran a DNA test, using fur collected from Shadow and some samples archived from the town's now defunct animal shelter from the 1980s. A miracle, a direct match. The dog howling at Eliza's grave wasn't Lucky, but he was his grandson. Somehow, this descendant had returned, to finish what his bloodline started, to stand watch where no one else did. The town was captivated. People came nightly now, bringing candles, flowers, toys. A little girl lost in time had found her voice through the loyalty of a dog. But then came the storm. On the 13th night, a massive thunderstorm rolled in from the east. Most of the townspeople stayed home, but Clara couldn't sleep. Something in her gut told her Shadow would still go to the grave, and she was right. She found him soaked and shivering, but determined, still guarding Eliza's spot. Clara brought a large umbrella and sat beside him. That's when lightning struck the oak tree at the cemetery's edge, and it split in half. The blast shook the ground. Part of the cemetery hillside crumbled slightly, and something slid loose beneath Eliza's grave. Clara stumbled toward it with her flashlight. There, buried just a foot deeper than the box Shadow had uncovered earlier, was a second, much smaller casket. Clara fell to her knees, breath caught in her throat. This hadn't been recorded. It wasn't listed in the burial logs. There should have been only one box. By dawn, the whole town gathered as the authorities carefully excavated the smaller coffin. Inside it was something astonishing. A bundle wrapped in faded linen. Tucked within, a tiny, tarnished bracelet with the name Eliza etched on it in a child's handwriting. Alongside it, bones. Small, human. For 62 years, the town had believed Eliza's body was lost forever. But she had been here all along, and only a dog had remembered. The discovery of Eliza's real remains sent shockwaves through New Haven. The unmarked grave wasn't a symbolic resting place after all. Someone had known where she was buried. Someone had hidden her body. Silently, secretly, the community that once called itself peaceful now found its hands trembling with forgotten guilt. Sheriff Tom Henderson, who was born 3 years after Eliza's death, launched an official investigation. Old files were reopened. Retired officers were questioned. Rumors that had long gathered dust now carried new weight. One name kept surfacing. Walter Granger, Eliza's father. Records showed he'd reported her missing after claiming she had wandered too close to the river during a storm. But inconsistencies emerged. Eliza's teacher had written a concern just weeks earlier. Eliza came to school with a bruise on her cheek. Says she fell, but she seemed scared. Another note mentioned frequent absences. No one had followed up. Then came the final blow. In the town's storage archive, behind moldy boxes of city maps, Clara discovered a photo. A young Eliza holding a German Shepherd puppy on a summer porch. Her left wrist clearly showing the bracelet found in the coffin. And in the background, Walter Granger holding a shovel, determined to uncover the full truth. Clara followed one more lead. A forgotten property deed registered in Walter Granger's name to a cabin deep in the woods. It had been boarded up for decades, left to rot under vines and dust. Clara and Deputy Harris drove out with Shadow, who instantly became agitated the moment they turned down the long dirt road. Shadow barked loudly. For bristling, tail stiff, he knew this place. The cabin door hung off its hinges. Inside, time had stopped. Old newspapers from 1963, a rusted pot on the stove. But then, Clara found something. Behind a loose panel in the wall, a small leather-bound notebook. It was Walter's journal. She opened it with shaking hands. She wouldn't stop crying about the dog. Said Lucky saw everything. Said she'd tell. I didn't mean to lose my temper, but when I pushed her, she hit her head. It all happened so fast. I buried her where no one would find her. Said the river took her. Everyone believed me. Clara's hands trembled. Shadow growled softly and pawed at the floor beneath where the journal had been hidden. Digging again. This time, they unearthed a tin box. Inside were photographs. One showed young Eliza asleep on a couch, a faint bruise on her temple. Another, burnt around the edges, showed Lucky chained outside. A child's silent suffering, a father's monstrous lie, and a dog who never forgot. Once the truth was revealed, the town came together in a way no one had expected. Eliza May Granger had never had a real funeral, just a memorial service with no body, no closure, no justice. Now, 6 decades later, she would finally be laid to rest. With honor, with tears, and with the town's deepest apologies. The mayor, the sheriff, and nearly everyone in New Haven attended the new service. A marble headstone was placed above her grave. carved beautifully with roses, and a quote, "Loved by one, forgotten by none." Shadow sat by the headstone the entire ceremony, unmoving, silent, regal. His loyalty had brought truth to light, and though he had no words, his presence said more than any eulogy ever could. During the service, Clara stood and read a letter she had written. "Eliza, we are sorry we failed you, but this dog, this remarkable soul, made sure we didn't forget. Through his howls and his heart, your voice returned. May you finally rest in peace." As the sun set, a little girl in the crowd walked over and gently placed a stuffed German shepherd toy beside the grave. Shadow looked at her, then bowed his head. In the months that followed, Shadow became a symbol of hope and remembrance. Tourists began visiting New Haven just to see the dog who mourned at midnight. The town erected a bronze statue. At the edge of the cemetery, a German shepherd with its head bowed beside a child's gravestone. It wasn't just for Eliza. It was for every unheard voice, every forgotten soul. Shadow never howled at midnight again, but he still visited the grave daily, always at noon, as if the weight of the past had lifted just enough to let him mourn in peace. Clara adopted him officially, but everyone in town considered him their dog. He rode in parades, visited nursing homes, even received a medal from the governor. But one thing remained unexplained. Shadow had no when he appeared. No chip, no collar, no records. And yet, he'd walked miles to a forgotten grave of a child from 1963 and howled until the town finally listened. Some say it was instinct. Others believe something greater guided him. Whatever the truth is, he brought light to a forgotten darkness. A week after Eliza's final burial, Clara received a package at the station. No return address. Inside was a folded yellow envelope with her name written in shaky pen. At first, she thought it was a prank, but as she unfolded the letter, her breath caught. It was written by Walter Granger. "If you're reading this, then I've already left this world. I never told a soul what I did. I couldn't. But sometimes at night, I'd hear her laughter in the trees, and it tore me apart. I kept the truth buried, just like I buried her. But I swear, something always watched me. Every night for years, I saw a dog at the edge of the woods, just staring. I couldn't bring myself to move. I think Lucky knew, and maybe he told someone." The letter was dated 1994. Shadow, or his ancestors, had been guarding that grave for decades, watching, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. Clara showed the letter to the mayor, who had it displayed at the town hall, next to Shadow's photo and Eliza's school portrait. The plaque read, "Justice delayed, loyalty eternal." News spread beyond Vermont. Journalists from across the country arrived. CNN ran a segment. Oprah's producers called Clara for an interview. But through all the fame and flashing cameras, the heart of the story remained simple and deeply moving. An old dog, an unmarked grave, a little girl who never stopped being loved. The townspeople began to change. Families started checking on each other more. Neighbors knocked on doors just to say hello. The local school introduced a kindness curriculum in Eliza's name. The cemetery, once overgrown and forgotten, became a place of quiet reflection, lit each night by lanterns left by visitors. One elderly widow, Mrs. Edith Monroe, said softly during a local vigil, "It's like that dog reminded us. We're all responsible for each other, even for the ones we've lost." Shadow became a living legend. Children would bring him treats. Veterans, many with service dogs of their own, saluted him. Some even knelt to pet him, their eyes full of tears. He was more than a dog now. He was a symbol. One morning, Clara woke to find Shadow not in his usual spot on the porch. She searched the backyard, the church steps, even the diner where he often napped. Finally, she went to Eliza's grave. There he was, lying peacefully beside the marble headstone, his head resting on his front paws, eyes open but still. He had passed in the night. A hush fell over the town when the news spread. That evening, hundreds gathered in the cemetery, not just from New Haven, but from neighboring counties, towns, even states. A pastor read a prayer. A choir sang softly, and one by one, people laid flowers beside him. They buried him just a few feet from Eliza, placing a small headstone that read, "Shadow, the dog who remembered, the heart that never gave up." The next morning, as mist rolled through the gravestones, a new sound broke the silence. Not a howl, but the playful yip of a young German shepherd puppy, a stray, unmarked, no tags, sitting quietly beside Shadow's grave, waiting. Clara adopted the puppy, named him Echo, just like his namesake. He showed signs of uncommon calm and deep perception. At only 5 months old, he began walking to the grave daily, sometimes sitting still for hours. Tourists still came, not for spectacle, but to feel something real. They brought stories of lost loved ones, letters, small toys, candles, and the town, once known for its sleepy silence, became a beacon for healing. The mayor eventually designated June 12th as Eliza and Shadow Day, a time to honor children lost too soon, and the animals who remain faithfully by our side. For the people of New Haven, it wasn't just about a dog or a grave anymore. It was about remembrance, redemption, and the strange, powerful ways that loyalty can bring even the darkest truth into the light. And late at night, when the wind rustled the trees near Maple Lane Cemetery, some said they could still hear it. Not a howl, but a promise.